Hello, it is fantastic to work with you again and do this full in-depth reading on your toes. We have done work before, so I'm not going to go into a lot of the explanation to begin with, but just remember that your left is your internal self and your right is your external and how you are in the world. Several messages popped right out to me. One is this high intuition that you have. And the second one has to do with the relationship toes. Now, part of the reason why I love Astro Toe Reading is because toe reading in and of itself is a super powerful modality. I think it's just one of the most powerful and underrated for identifying where you are right now in your journey. Where are you on the map? And then what I love is when we combine it with the natal chart, it really offers a lot of clarity. So this messaging around your relationship toes showed up very, very clearly in your natal chart. So let's get going here. Let's talk about this intuition. So these are the channels of intuition that you have going in here. And then down here at the base, this is your leadership. So because it's square in here, that shows a high capacity for and kind of a soul contract for leading. So just think about how you felt when I mentioned leading. Does that feel like, oh yeah, I know that's coming up and I'm resisting it? Or, yep, I know it and I'm on my way? Or was it like, oh no, like I know, but I really am hesitant? If it's that third one, I know that has something to do with the relationship toes. So we'll talk a lot about those. Okay, back to this channel of intuition, which is it's such a wide channel for you. You are such a highly intuitive person. And so just really trusting that intuition. Now, you can increase your intuition by inviting the energy in these first two toes to track more straight. So I want you to just imagine if this toe tracked straight up. So the center of your toe here was actually over here, and same. That would expose that intuition in such a good way. It would just open it up, widen it out, and we're talking seer levels of intuition here. So what I would recommend, and we're going to talk about the message and meaning behind these toes, but pushing in on these lower knuckles here and then pushing out on the top part. So it's kind of a motion like this if I'm working on your right toe there, or this on your left toe. So in and out, and just gently inviting the energy to track in that way. Because right now, these toes, they've got a little bit of trauma in them, especially trauma in the second half of your life. There is some generational trauma here, which we're going to talk about when we get over here. But as far as your life path and your spirit path, some of this has happened in this second half of your life. Now, I know a little bit about you. I know that that's when your intuitive gifts really started to be made manifest to you. And here it is. Oh, we're on to something. There's that yawn. You know me, and a little tears coming out of my eyes, energetic release. So looking at this second half of your life, and I would be so curious to know the direction of how these toes were before this second half of your life. Like, did they lean that way, or were they more straight? In society, intuitive people are dangerous to the establishment. So we are not taught to have our intuition, to trust our intuition. We are always asked to give our authority up to somebody else, somebody who knows better. We tell our kids they can't say no to us. And then they take that message and they can't say no to other people. And so it just becomes, I'm not saying you necessarily did that. That's just a pattern that I see a lot. And so we're constantly giving our authority away. And going through this process of reclaiming your authority is going to be very, very beneficial to you. And indeed, just open up this channel of intuition in such a big way. So let's talk about the spirit path toe first. Again, I would have loved to have seen what your spirit path was before midlife, but since midlife, it's leaned this, I can see right here where it started to lean. And so the great thing about the toes is you can start to track this. And now that we're getting super clear about this, just tracking this and inviting the energy to go here, inviting yourself that as you step into the spiritual path that is right for you in this lifetime and lead others, that this toe will straighten, that the energy will move, and that this channel of intuition will open even more. What I'm seeing energetically is you on a path. And interesting, it's actually this card that I pulled for myself today, the Hierophant card. So it took this person, the path. If this was the destination, and then of course I love how there's never an end to it. And it took this person a while to get to this spot on the path. You're on the path to this place of ultimate authority for yourself and confidence in leading in that authority. I'm seeing you just on one of those switchbacks in the Red Rock mountain areas, just back and forth moving on this path. I also know that you're in your Chiron return. In fact, let's have a look here at the degree of your Chiron. 13 degrees. Yeah. Oh yeah. Like Chiron is sitting right here around 12 degrees right now. So you're really feeling this. When we have our Chiron return, I think of it like peeling off the old scabs that we thought had healed over, but haven't. And so peeling those off so that that wound can heal from the inside. And it is, just describing that kind of gave me the shivers. But that really is what our Chiron return is exposing new layers to that wound that we didn't know was there so that we can then heal that wound. And some of that wound is definitely in spirit, in your spirit path. So, going through, it's through that tunnel, it's around that switchback on the mountain until you get to that spot. Oh, and there it is. And there it is. Just sit with that, take a deep breath and receive that, and know that you are on the right path, that there's some switchbacks to take. And you can aid this. You can move this energy along in a very gentle way through this inviting of the toes to track in a new energy. Your life path toe. Kind of the same thing. This leaning over and opening up to what else is available to you on your life path. What other avenues support, because you're on the right path. And I can see that because this toenail, it's wanting to go straight. It's really just this toe that's holding it back. This toenail, if you look, it's straightening out, and time tracks, as we've talked about before, in the toes. Here, back in the base of the toe, that's stuff that's a long time ago, even before we were born. As it moves out into the nail is the first place. So you can see this nail is really starting to straighten out. And so you're on the right path. Just invite the energy to move there in your life path. All right. One thing that all of the rest of these toes have in common is that they all have some blocked energy in them. So this is your communication and expression toe. And we can see that there is some blocked energy in there, and they're even looking a little bit to the past. So my question is why are you looking to the past? Is there unresolved issues there having to do with your communication and expression? Was there a time when you felt free to express that you're looking back to? Your Mercury, which is the ruler of this toe, is in Gemini. So at home in the sign of Gemini, in the sign of communication. And the third house here is the ruler of, like Mercury is the ruler of the third house. And when we look here at what we've got going on in here, we've got Pluto, who's the transformer, asking you to transform, to distill, and to be very intentional to alchemize the way that you are communicating and the way that you are expressing and even the way that you think. And this is in the sign of Virgo. So having, it makes so much sense, the work that you do, because it has the structure that feels really good. It's got the process that allows you to step out of your overthinking mind and move into your intuitive, analytical, your intuitive mind, because you know that the analysis has already happened. Now, we also see Uranus here in the third house. Uranus asks us to wake up to what is inside of you. And when we look here at at Mercury is got this line coming down here that's a triangle to Uranus. So when we're talking about this harmonious conversation that Mercury is having with Uranus, that's like wind at your back kind of energy. That is, you have the cosmic support to make the changes and to awaken to the way that you are going to communicate in this world. And so this is, it's a sign of independence, being different in the way that you express. I've noticed with you over the years that the way that you embody your essence has shifted. It's beautiful. It's been beautiful to watch, stepping outside of the norms, and continue to do that. That has a lot to do with this leadership. What are some of your, here it is. Please take this in. I invite you to write down your original thoughts. When you're doing a reading for someone, or when you are just contemplating, or when you're reading or studying or learning or on a hike or wherever it might be, what are some of your original thoughts? And then don't overthink it. Okay, don't get overwhelmed with all these thoughts. Don't think, oh, well, that wasn't original. Because you're right. At this point in humanity, there are very few original thoughts. What's original is what you do with those thoughts. What's original is the way that you choose to take action on those thoughts. So don't discount your quote unquote original thoughts, your out of the box revolutionary thoughts. Instead, write them down and then consider how you will take action on it. When we look at your action toes here, of all your toes, your action toes have the least amount of blocked energy in them. And so you are definitely a person of action. And when we look again at your chart, you've got a lot of markers of that. So Gemini is a fast-moving planet, or sign. Gemini thinks fast. You're super fast when you think and the way that you move. And this is going to bring your community to you. This is one of your biggest superpowers. And then you've got Mars over here in Aquarius taking unique action. All right, so you've got this beautiful trine here between Mercury and Uranus. And then you have this beautiful trine here between Mars and your sun. So taking action is that is your unique gift to the world. So even in the work that you do, what are some unique ways that you can bring about that work, that you can incorporate that work? What are some unique combinations you can make with your work and with other modalities? Those are some questions to contemplate. Keep taking action. When you gently invite the energy to move with these big toes, also really spend some time on these second toes, particularly the way that you communicate and express in the outside world. Massage that toe. Okay, it's got some blocked energy in it. And then again, the purpose of this is just to gently invite the energy to move in a different way. And then once that energy starts moving in a different way, then we start moving in a different way. And also, stay hopeful. Stay hopeful. I just sense a lack of hope in this action and expression. I'm sorry, this communication and expression toe. There's just a little bit of a lack of hope. So that might be something to consider. Is there an area in your life that you're lacking hope that has to do with the way that you express or communicate? I've got some ideas, and they have to do with the relationship toe, because if you look, the relationship toe and the communication toes on both feet, they're kind of pointing towards each other. Like that action is there kind of buffering it, but they're both looking at each other. Continue to take action. What is your primary language of affection, commonly called love languages? What is your primary language of affection? Is it words of affirmation? Is it acts of service? Physical touch? Quality time? And gifts? And this is something that I would love to discuss with you, because it does have to do with these toes. All right. Keep taking action, moving forward. You've got a very moving forward kind of energy. Even in the way that this photo was taken, where your right foot is slightly ahead of your left foot. And then when we look at your chart, like this is a moving forward chart. You are definitely somebody who is moving forward. And this might be part of the blocked energies, because right now, as you've gone through the midlife transitions, culminating here with this intense Chiron return, making you question who you are. And is it safe to be seen? Is it safe to be first? Is it safe to be a trailblazer? Those are some of the themes of your Chiron return in Aries. All right. We're going to talk about two other places in your feet, and then we're going to go to these relationship toes. So these are your trust and prosperity toes. Trust and prosperity are your little toes. Are you on the too trusting side or the not trusting enough side? Because there is an imbalance in your trust, and not just in your trust with yourself and in your relationships, but in trust with the divine. And so I would invite you to just look at your relationships with people, and your relationships with non-humans, like the divine, like money, like safety, like leadership. Everything is a relationship, and there's some trust issues within those relationships. And so examining what could that be? What are your boundaries? Okay, let's talk about boundaries for just a minute here. Okay, your chart does show that you could have either really fantastic boundaries, like your moon over here in Capricorn, or boundaries that need a little bit more firmness to them. I like to think of boundaries like, you know, when you go to a theater and there's those heavy poles, and then there's that soft, velvety rope in between. So I'm thinking obviously of an old-fashioned type of theater. That's what I like to think of boundaries, where it's there. And most people, because they're respectful and because they respect the way that crowds need to work, will respect those boundaries. There are always people who are going to step over it, unhook it, walk under it, whatever. But most people will have those boundaries. And your boundaries don't have to be these rigid, barbed wire, brick walls. In fact, any boundary that you have to stand there and defend is not really serving you. That's taking a ton of energy. Now, with this Cancer energy and your rising sign of Cancer, that tends to be strong boundaries on one side or really weak boundaries and no boundaries. It's the mother energy. So let's think about Cancer as the mother energy. So a mother has almost no boundaries with her children, right? They climb all over her. She would do anything for them, stay up all night with them. And so, obviously I'm thinking of mothers with younger children. Those boundaries do need to get firmer as the children get older. So there's that. But we have very strong boundaries when it comes to our children. If somebody was to come and try and invade their boundaries of safety or otherwise, like, we would absolutely be there with our swords. And so mothers have extreme boundaries, from no boundaries with their children to very rigid boundaries about their children and how their children are protected. So just a conversation with yourself or with somebody that you trust around boundaries. Please remember that boundaries don't have to be battle lines. Okay? Boundary lines don't have to be battle lines. The most empowering boundaries and the most powerful boundaries are the ones that are kind of like those theater boundaries, where people just stay on the boundary and they respect the boundary because they're respectful and because you respect it and you've taken the time to energetically put those in place. Now, your trust toes and your relationship toes and your communication toes, and I think even your life path and spirit path toes, if you look, they're all coming around to action, which is why I wonder, and I would love some confirmation on this, is acts of service your primary language of affection? Okay, because they're all coming into this action. Is that how you show love? Because now we're going to talk about these relationship toes, which you've got generational stuff in here. Down here in your trust and relationship toes, this is where you've got a lot of that generational stuff. And the great thing is that as you release that, it goes back to ancestors and it goes forward to your children and their children and grandchildren, etc. So massaging these toes, because you do have blocked energy in them, would be extremely beneficial. And then one of the things that I noticed when I looked at your chart, when I was seeking guidance for, these trust and relationship toes, is that you have this, when we look at Venus here, okay, we've got Venus, and Venus is sitting here and she is unaspected. That means she's not talking to anyone here except Saturn, who she is right next to. All right, Saturn and Gemini, and Venus are right next to each other at 29 degrees. Now, what else I think is interesting in your chart is your part of fortune is at 29 degrees, and your Jupiter in Scorpio, they're all at 29 degrees. When we have really late degree planets in our charts, that's oftentimes the lesson that we are here to learn. It's like what we're here to transcend. It's different than our wound. It's like a message about transcending that particular thing. And so talking about Jupiter and Scorpio is beyond the scope of this particular reading, but talking about your Venus conjunct Saturn in the sign of Taurus. So let's get really clear about this. Let's start with talking about Venus in Taurus. So Venus in Taurus, Venus loves to be in Taurus because Venus rules Taurus. And Taurus is the ruler of our values, our possessions. Taurus loves luxury and the sensitive things. You are, having Venus in Taurus shows a lot of faithfulness and that you desire to be in stability and to offer stability. Your sense of touch is highly developed. And so being really aware of how does it feel when someone is touching me? You are attractive to people who want to be partners with you, who want to have a romantic relationship with you. When we look at Venus, when she is conjunct Saturn, okay, this is when it starts to get really interesting, because that's the only planet that she's talking to is Saturn. And when Venus is conjunct Saturn or right next to it, what that means is that duty is a big part of the way that you relate to people. So caution, a sense of duty over a sense of love. Having difficulty expressing oneself. Saturn is restrictive. All right. Saturn is restrictive energy. Now, restriction is great for some things, right? Saturn is he's the father figure of the zodiac, and I like to think of him as like a trellis that vines can grow up. Okay, if the trellis is not there, the vine just spreads out all over. With the trellis, the vine can become useful. I'm even thinking of a boundary. And so having Saturn and Venus right there next to each other can create a little bit of tension. Now, when we come down here and look at this, and I'm just going to retract what I said about Venus not talking to other planets. Venus is talking to other planets in conjunction in this marriage relationship with Saturn, okay? And so we look at this trine coming down from this line, this triangle down here to Pluto, the transformer, across to your moon, which is in Capricorn. The moon doesn't like to be in Capricorn. The moon in Capricorn can be very restricted. It feels restricted. And so you've got this trine thing going on here with these planets. And so you've got lucky energy at your back, and at the same time, where they're all here in late degrees. That's really interesting. And part of your life purpose is to transcend the emotional and relationship baggage from the past. I know you've been doing a lot of womb work, okay? That's Pluto here. Pluto is helping you in that womb work. Pluto is the god of the underworld. Pluto is going down to the depths of the ocean, indeed into the depths of hell to transform. And I know that probably really resonates with you. And you're on the right path. So just keep going. In your relationships, do you feel emotionally restrictive? This has to do with this expression too. In your relationships, do you feel like you need to be the strong one? Are you the support? Are you the Saturn energy? Are you the trellis for the relationship? And how do you feel about that? Do you attract partners that either don't like that you are the trellis, or are vines that really need training to go up the trellis? Do you attract people who want to be in a power play with you of some kind? Do you attract emotionally distant partners that are mirroring the emotional distance that you put up to protect yourself because you don't trust? There's more. When you do some of this work, that I know you are actively engaged in this work, really look at peeling back the layers around this emotional stuff. Some of it is yours and some of it is not yours. A lot of it is just a pattern, a generational pattern. Keep doing that womb work. Another thing that I would invite you to do, just like we were doing with these toes, the big toes, where we go like this, on this we're going to go the other way. And I would even say, just gently slide your fingers up the inside of this toe. Bend that toe. The Saturn conjunct your Venus is restricting. Additionally, that it's in the fixed sign of Taurus. There's a lot of fixity energy, rigid energy. And I think that this, because you've got so much beautiful Gemini energy, which is very mutable, which is very adaptable, and then you have this fixity energy about your relationships. So invite your angels, guides, and the mutable energy that you hold within yourself of Gemini to loosen up what you have around your relationship toes, what you have in your heart. There's a card. I'll send you a picture privately of the card that just keeps coming into my mind. And I would like to draw for you 2 cards for this reading. Whoops, clearly I just made a mess. Okay, one of them is going to be from this Dark Goddess deck. I'll put the information in the description of the video on this. And so this can be Dark Goddess energy that's showing up in your relationships. So let's draw. What Dark Goddess is representing the relationship energy, and how relationships are showing up, and how she's showing up in her relationships, and what's holding her back. Okay, interesting. You got, and I'm going to just stop my share here. You got Medea. All right. She's deception. I'm going to look her up and read what is coming up for Medea. Remember, this is as it pertains to your relationships. Okay, some deception. All right. It may look calm and serene from where you are standing, but allow the truth to come out. Be aware of your, I'm paraphrasing here, be aware of the way that you are showing up, and does that align with what you are wanting to give in a relationship? Have you been deceived in the past, or have you deceived? Okay. I'm just going to tell you a little bit about Medea. Clearly, mythology is all archetypal. So Medea is the archetypal deceiver of Greek origin. Medea used her magical powers to help Jason of the Argonauts to obtain the golden fleece from her father. Then she married Jason and used all manner of magic to help him. However, when Medea's powers and deceptions finally failed her and Jason deserted her for someone else, she went on a rampage. I would just invite you to think, what aspects of that story apply to you? Have you been deceived, and where have you deceived? I don't believe that you would deceive intentionally. So the question is going to take a little bit more digging. And that would be, where are you deceiving yourself? And then how is that projecting out into deceiving others? Or how are you deceiving others? And what keeps coming up is in what you want, are able to, and willing to give. This has to do with the boundaries too. Do you let partners cross your boundaries? And how can you communicate those boundaries in a more empowered way so that they don't? Okay, that's one. And then we're going to do this drawing from this, the Spirit of the Animals. I love this deck. So it's Spirit of the Animals by Jody Bergsma. And this card is going to be your relationship totem. Your relationship totem card. Who's your relationship animal guide? Ooh, this is interesting, especially as it pertains to Medea, the Coyote, the revealer of truth. Okay. The Coyote is about stealth, survival, ingenuity, also the trickster, which I think is interesting with Medea, and the wise fool. So like the Fool card in the tarot, the beginning of a new adventure, playful, teacher, transformation, and wisdom. Among Native American cultures, Coyote has been called the trickster, or the wise and foolish one. We have all been fools, and we have all been tricked. It's all a part of life. We make mistakes, fall down, suffer bad choices, yet we learn from them all. The person that can learn will survive and thrive. Coyote teaches us to play and celebrate life daily. Coyote asks us to laugh, especially at ourselves, and not take life too seriously. Coyote medicine is associated with youthful energy, childlike wisdom, and lifelong learning. Coyote people are asked to be students of life. I think that really relates to you. Coyote wisdom is seldom delivered directly, but comes from the long and winding road. Yes, we will fail, be fooled, be deceived, and worse. We may fall down 7 times, but get up 8 and win. If Coyote is your totem animal, you will be assured of success if you learn from the mistakes and never give up. Laugh, adapt, transform, and thrive. These are all at the heart of Coyote medicine. Okay. This all kind of ties together with that long and winding road that I saw earlier, getting to the Hierophant, with deception and exploring that, and then using the manual manipulation techniques that I've explained, or anything else that feels good to you, to invite the energy to move in a different way. Thank you for the honor and opportunity to do this reading with you.